Hello, YouTubers. It's me, the J-Man 63. Today's an interesting day. I had a pizza without knowing June 4th was the day of exacting revenge. Let us remember this man who, let's dig deep into this man because he was wronged, I'm going to say. Now, some people are going to get on me because it's a controversial topic. But I was just watching and I found out that today is the 4th of June. This is indeed the day that Marvin Heemeyer ran wild in the town of Granby, Colorado. Now I'm going to break this story down. If you've seen the movie Tread, if you got lucky enough to see this movie in theaters or on Netflix, either A or B. Yep. Hey, happy killdozer. Yeah! Woo! Thank you for commenting. Happy killdozer day. Exactly why I made this video at this time. Now, people ask me, why do you want to celebrate such a man who was a psycho? He was not a psycho. One, he was a man who had been pushed into a corner. He had been pushed so many times with zoning disputes. A town tried to screw him over. The town was corrupt. The town hall was corrupt. Everything about the town was corrupted. So, what was a man to do with nothing but a lot of time on his hands, that was an accomplished welder, that loved the simple things in life, that loved outdoor pleasures, that loved all kinds of things? A simple man who was sane, completely sane, until the town people fucked him over and wrecked his fucking life. What was this man to do? Well, he was an accomplished welder. People thought he was losing his mind. His wife had cheated on him, from what I understand. A lot of people had wronged the man. Even his wife wronged him at some point. And Marv enjoyed the simple things that I enjoy. He was an everyday man. And he got screwed over by a lot of people. A lot of people. And what did he do? I hate to go on. So he had his muffler shop, and of course they tried to do everything. He wanted to build a road, and they kind of blocked him from building that. They built a concrete shop next to him. Now, guys, if you haven't seen the movie Tread, you gotta watch it. It is a great movie, and it shows his side of things. It shows the town side of things. But yes, today is indeed that day, and I totally forgot. I'm glad I'm making this video. But people ask me, they're like, well, why did the man do what he did? So what he did was he purchased a Komatsu bulldozer from a construction site, and then he put the bulldozer into his shop. Then Marv got to work. Oh, this message is held for review. If you need some footage of the killdozer, click my channel. No, I'm good. If you've seen Destroyed in Seconds, let's see, show here. See if we can show it. But if you have never seen Destroyed in Seconds, I highly suggest watching the video. Ron Pitts has a good video of this. Of course, he doesn't mention, and Count Dankula has already done a vid on the subject. But yes, he took a Komatsu bulldozer. He outfitted it with almost a foot thick armor metal plating. He put concrete in between that metal plating. Then he had assault rifles in case. Of course, he did not kill anybody at all. And I think this was planned. He had a constructed note of businesses that had completely wronged him. And in my opinion, he was just in everything he did. People are going to get on me. My family is going to get mad at me for this video probably. But he was completely just in everything he did. The mayor had wronged him. Everyone had wronged him. And on this day, June 4th, Marv had this bulldozer constructed with armor plating, armor-piercing rounds. He even made a video camera system. And Maybe the guy had something wrong with him. Maybe he did, but maybe he had some kind of disability, something like that. The guy had to have been pretty dang smart, and if things had been diagnosed at the time, he may have been on the spectrum. So this guy probably didn't get the actual help he needed, and he took things into his own hands. So on this day, he takes off on a violent ride. He busted through his muffler shop, and then the townspeople. Then things went on a roll from there. He had started bulldozing all these businesses that had wronged him. He went for the town hall. He went for a lot of different places. I forget exactly how many, but I think he'd caused like something millions in dollars worth of damage to Granby. And when during this chase, an earth mover actually tried to block him. Granby had considered calling in the National Guard, and they had considered calling in Apache helicopters. I'm amazed they didn't try to use RPGs to stop the guy, but police fired every single round. They'd considered calling in SWAT teams and they were trying to get the biggest armor-piercing ammunition they had. But even at that point, I don't think the largest armor-piercing ammo would have busted that concrete shield. I think a lot of what it would have taken was either an RPG or a landmine or something to stop that. But after a while, and after about while into this rampage, all this destruction he caused, what stopped the killdozer eventually, the motor called it quits once there was a hardware store, and then the killdozer ground to a halt. And after that, they heard a gunshot, single gunshot, was from a 45. And that was the final shot, and that was the only loss of life that day, which I can say is very sad. He took his own life rather than going to prison and suffering for it. I don't know. I live with a lot of mixed feelings, but right now with everything becoming a shitstorm in politics and so many people getting screwed over, I have a good feeling now that I figure this to remind everyone that if somebody gets backed into a corner, they're going to come out swinging. And obviously, I feel like so many people now, with the way things are going in America, all these hackers and stuff, all these pipelines getting hacked, makes me think all this stuff Marv had worked for and tried to do, despite everyone trying to stop him. And then you got so much going on now that, in my opinion, if he was alive today, he'd probably shudder to see the news being in jail. And, if he didn't kill himself that day, if he'd seen the way the world's become now, I'm fairly certain he wouldn't have wanted to live through seeing the news on jail and stuff. Because all the world has gone to shit, to be honest with you. And in my opinion, Marv was the last American patriot. He was one of person who believed fight fire with fire, and I honor him for that. And it's sad that one man should get so wronged that he's pushed to do something that people, yes, they consider insane. Yes, people say the bulldozer's out of control. I will say this: he was way in control of that machine. I think the only thing missing on his bumper was "Jesus is my co-pilot," and yeah. So, and he had done a lot more to that. Now, what happened to the killdozer? Well, people didn't want to be reminded of such a day, so what they did was they cut the killdozer up into sections and sent it out to multiple scrap yards because they didn't want to be reminded of such a day. But I will say this: if you have not seen the movie Tread, you have got to watch it. It is a great movie. I was lucky enough to see it at my theater that went out of business, and you will not be disappointed. But still to this day, he remains, like I said, one of the last true patriots of America. And he stood up for what he believed in. And I honor such a man for doing that. I do. People get mad at me. People think I'm crazy, but he stood up for everything. There were zoning permits. The city tried to screw him over. Again, people get pushed to a point. Some people can deal with stress and some people can't in some ways. And I've had a stressful last couple days, so there are times I can relate to this guy, this story, and I can relate as many years I sat trying to get benefits and trying to get things straightened out. I can relate to this guy's story because a lot of what he wanted was the simple stuff in life. People screwed him out of that. People did him wrong. And in my opinion, it matters to me that such a man should have to be lost in vain because a city has pushed him. And now, with everything going so crazy, now with all the pipelines getting hacked and everything, it makes me think how far off we are from people doing this at a distance over their PC and trying to cause mass terrorisms. However, I didn't think this was an act of terrorism. I think this was an act of patriotism. And people might think that, but I do. Again, he was a great man, and in my opinion, the town got everything they were bargaining for that day. They pushed this man. Now, how did he build the killdozer? Well, this took him a period of quite a while, and during the construction of the killdozer, he made quite a few different tapes on these. I forget the brand. I think they were like Maxell tapes that he had. There's a lot of these that were made during the construction period of the killdozer, and he had set his shop up to build this machine. Um, it was a interesting feat to say the least. And when this was done, I will say this cat was way ahead of his time, to be honest with you. Um, yeah, like I said, he had assault rifles and he had this thing set up. I think he even had AC in the thing. And at one point during the chase, I think the SWAT had tried to chuck like a grenade down his exhaust port to stop the motor. I mean, they were trying everything to halt his progress through the city. And I'm going to look it up real quick. Let me go to Wiki here because I want to see how many businesses he destroyed so I can give you all the rundown. Looked up killdozer. Hold on. Let me go to this because I'm going to go off screen. Killdozer Day. Yes, it is June 4th. Exactly. So let's see. Yeah, and we are now, let's see. I'm looking at Marvin Heemeyer because let's see. Yeah, 2004. So now we are coming up on over about 15 or 18 years of this. So he had a zoning dispute, and then the killdozer story. It says here Marvin Heemeyer's modified Komatsu, which has redeemed the MK tank and audio recordings, had makeshift armor plating covering the cabin, the motor, parts, the tracks. The armor was over a foot thick, and this consisted of 5,000 psi quartzite concrete because, of course, there was a concrete plant, and this was a mix sandwiched between sheets of tool steel acquired from an automotive repair in Denver to make composite armor, which is kind of amazing that this was done back in 2004 because, military uses composite armor on their tanks, which is pretty amazing to think that this guy was able to do this crap back in the day. And interestingly enough, I'm guessing this was resistant to small arm fire and then explosives. So I'm guessing even if they probably did have a decent RPG at their disposal, it makes me think that they may have not been able to get through this. So my RPGs probably would not have helped things. Probably. I'm not really sure what they would have had to use. And it says here, these external explosions and more than 200 ammunition were fired at this dozer, and this had no effect on it. And for visibility, this was outfitted with several video cameras linked to 2 monitors mounted on the vehicle's dashboard. The camera was protected by the outside by 3-inch shields of bulletproof Lexan. Amazing how much thought he had methodically thought this out, exactly as I thought out my place, But this guy really thought this out, and this goes even deeper. And this was used. He even had outfitted with air conditioning, which is pretty amazing because he knew it was going to get hot. So that's pretty crazy. He'd made 3 gun ports with 50 caliber rifles for a .308 semi-automatic and a .22 LR. This was fitted with a half-inch thick steel plate, and this shows you how much thought this guy had really put into this machine. Heemeyer apparently had no intention of leaving the cabin because what he had rigged up is he had rigged up a hydraulic system, and once this cabin was lowered, it was going to be permanently affixed in place once he took off on his ride. Oh, yeah, by the way, peep the shirt I'm wearing today. Rat Fink. Um, he may have used a homemade crane. That's what it was said. Yeah, he'd use hydraulics or a crane to lower this armor half over the dozer. And then once he tipped the lid shut, he knew he was not going to get out. And Daly had said this. Investigators searched the garage where they believed Heemeyer had built the vehicle, and they found cement and armor steel, which that should be a pretty clear indicator. Even people came over to his shop and they had seen this, but they didn't think anything of it. Again, nobody stopped him at all. And it says, it is interesting to observe that I never got caught, Heemeyer wrote. This was a part-time project, and this says this was over 1.5 year time period. Now imagine that. He built this machine in less time than it took me to get an entire house in order. I'll be honest, that's a pretty damn amazing feat. It says, so he built this thing in less time than I got my place in order. That is amazing. So he was working very methodically, obviously. The guy didn't shower. I can imagine he smelled, and he was surprised that several men who had visited the shop previous that year had not noticed this dozer, especially with a 2,000-pound lift fully exposed. Somehow their vision was clouded. Yeah, interesting. So now we get to the date that the demolition period of this. On June 4th, 2004, Heemeyer drove his armored dozer through the wall of his former business, the concrete plant, the town hall, the office, the local newspaper that had editorialized against him. And he had written a list of all these places, so he had already had his shit list in order when he took off on his ride against him. The home of a former mayor in which the mayor's widow had resided, and it's amazing, a hardware store owned by another man. Heemeyer named a lawsuit, as well as a few others, and most notably the town hall, if you didn't know, and that's where his zoning disputes were. This attack, he also attacked the local police department too. The attack lasted 2 hours and 7 minutes, damaging 13 buildings, knocking out natural gas service to the town hall, the concrete plant, and he was even trying to reach some propane tanks as well to knock out their propane supply, which is interesting. The concrete plant damaging a truck. He destroyed a part of a utility service center. Despite the great damage to property, no one besides Heemeyer, by a self-inflicted gunshot wound, which is sad, was killed in the event. However, the modified bulldozer, it did come to be known as that, killdozer, after the name of a short story by Theodore Sturgeon. Again, he didn't kill anybody. He killed himself. Let's see if we got any comments. Nope, no comments. It's pretty amazing. Dedications of Heemeyer's contended that he made a point of not hurting anybody. So he was perfectly sane, in my opinion, because he killed nobody during this rampage. And it says a bakery owner said Heemeyer went out of his way not to harm anybody. Of course, there was not the intent to kill somebody during this rampage, so-called rampage, but not to harm anyone. Others had other different views. And of course, in opinions like anything else, everyone's going to have one. The sheriff's department argued the fact that no one was injured was not due to good intent as much as good luck. Heemeyer had installed 2 firing ports on the inside, had fired 15 bullets at the, this is what I'd forgotten about here. They fired at the transformers and propane tanks. Had those tanks ruptured and exploded, anyone within a 1.5 mile radius probably would have been endangered. It's probably a good thing he didn't reach those, which is good. But again, who knows what would have happened if that had gone on. But maybe it's a good thing that it did call it quits at that point, and they probably might be right. But again, this was very constructed chaos. But again, this was methodically thought out. The sheriff's department said 12 police officers and residents of a senior citizens complex were within such a rage, Heemeyer fired many bullets from his semi-automatic rifle at Cody Dochev. Yeah, Cody Dochev was the cement plant owner that tried to stop the assault on his concrete plant, and this is the one I remember seeing on the video. And I'm seeing a picture right now. Let me see if I can. Hold on. Yep, exactly. Marvin Heemeyer did nothing wrong. Exactly. He did not. Thank you, my guy. Nope, not at all. He was very just in his destruction. Now, like I said, some people might have a controversy about him reaching the propane tanks, but again, I think the man did nothing wrong. He was absolutely just in what he did. I'm trying to get back to my article here now. Semi-automatic at Cody Dochev, and he used a wheel track. Cody used a wheel tractor scraper, which was pushed aside by the killdozer and pretty much rammed him off course. Of course, we knew how that was probably going to end. It was a big industrial-sized game of chicken. And then later on, Marvin Heemeyer fired on two state patrol officers before they had fired at him. The sheriff's department also noted that 11 of 13 buildings that Heemeyer bulldozed were occupied until moments before their destruction. At the town library, for example, a children's program was in progress when the incident began. One officer dropped a flashbang grenade. I thought it was actually a regular grenade down the bulldozer's exhaust pipe. There was no apparent effect. Local and state troopers, including a SWAT team, oh, so I didn't know they did have a SWAT team, walked behind him beside the bulldozer, occasionally firing. And of course, it shrugged it off, was impervious to the shots. Attempts to disable the bulldozer's camera with gunfire. Yep, unable to penetrate the Lexan. At one point, understaffed, my mouth is getting dry from reading, sorry guys. Understaffed Glenn Trainor climbed atop the bulldozer and rode it like a bionic buster, trying to figure out a way to get inside. That's kind of crazy inside the Dragon. However, he was forced to jump off and avoid being hit by debris. At this point, local authorities and the Colorado State Police fear that they were running out of options in terms of firepower. And I didn't even know. I looked it up. I was interested in Destroy in Seconds, but then I remember this date when this movie came out, I think. And this is a very significant date. So, in terms of firepower, Marvin Heemeyer would soon turn against civilians in Granby, Colorado. Governor Bill Owens allegedly considered authorizing the National Guard to use an Apache helicopter equipped with a Hellfire missile on a two-man team and equipped with a Javelin anti-tank missile. They had considered calling in the Guard. That's pretty crazy. This was very deemed unnecessary when Marvin became trapped in the basement of a Gamble's hardware store. As of late 2011, Governor Owens' staff still vehemently denied considering such a course of action. But since the members of the state patrol revealed to the country that the governor did not consider authorizing an attack, but ultimately decided against it due to the potential collateral damage of a missile strike to the heart of Granby being significantly higher than what Marvin could have caused by his bulldozer. And remember, he'd caused millions of dollars in damage, but that was the only thing he did. Two problems arose as Heemeyer destroyed the Gamble's hardware store. Radiator of the bulldozer had been damaged and the engine was leaking various fluids. The bulldozer's engine failed and Heemeyer dropped one tread into the store's basement and he couldn't get out. About a minute later, one of the SWAT team members who had swarmed around the machine reported hearing a single shot from inside the sealed cab. It was later intended that Heemeyer had shot himself in the head with a 357 handgun, so it wasn't a 45. I was wrong. Police had used explosives in an attempt to remove the steel plates, but the third explosion failed. Then they had to cut through this cabin with an oxyacetylene cutting torch. Grand Grand Country Emergency Director John Heaton stated that authorities were able to access and remove Heemeyer's body. This happened at 2 a.m. on June 5th, so it took him a while to dig into this. This is Fate of the Bulldozer here, and this is the last one that I'm going to read to you guys before I end this video. And then on April 19, 2005, the town announced plans to scrap his killdozer. The plan involved dispersing individual parts to many separate scrap yards to prevent souvenir taking, which I would have loved to have had a piece of that guy's machine. Let's see, we have in popular culture, Tread is the big one that everybody has. Interestingly enough, there is a trap metal song about this, and I might have to look that up. So there are a few songs that were made about him. So that is the long and short of everything. And in my opinion, people are going to argue and say a lot, but again, I don't think Heemeyer had done anything wrong. I really don't. And people are going to say people are going to debate me on that all day. That rages on still. But there's people that do wrong things all the time, and they never get caught. Of course, he would have been caught if he hadn't killed himself. So, he was up against the wall with a lot of things going on. And in my opinion, this guy was a patriot for what he did. And again, I always say, don't get mad, get even. So sometimes you do have to get even with the people who do wrong you, even though it doesn't feel right, and maybe it's in your conscience to do so. So that's my opinion about the killdozer, guys. Anyway, we've run on about 26 or 30 minutes talking about this guy and the patriotism he had and what he stood up for. So that ends my video about the killdozer. And remember, June 4th, remember the man that stood up when everybody had wronged him, when so many people were against him with the system that was corrupt. Like I said, with everything going on, I don't think we're far off that. So before we go back into these times, and now that it's about 20 years past this almost, let's not repeat history, guys. Come on. Anyways, I'm going to let y'all go. Bye.